Hey everyone, Neil here. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the best in 2026, all that good stuff. Just sitting here trying to work out something from good old Van Halen, Out of Love Again. Even if you're not a hard rocker, which I'm really not per se, but it's one of the most brilliant pieces of drumming and interplay with his brother, Eddie Van Halen. Out of Love Again, check it out if you haven't. But I don't think I'll ever be able to play it, but I'd like to understand it. So anyway, sitting here working on this, and I've wanted to get away from this indolence thing a little bit, and I wanted to do a video and some writing on what I think would be the absolute best interview question if somebody were a creative and I were hiring them for a job. I've thought about this for years, actually, so I'd like to do that. But this is unscripted. I'll unedit this. It's just me sitting down here in my drum room. Deeply troubled by something, I have to admit here, as I come up upon the holiday season. Very, very disconcerted, I have to say. Has to do with language. And it has to do with scurrilous language, scrofulous language, scabrous language, oppobrious language, vituperative, vulgar, common, contumelious even, if you're preparing for a GRE or your child is preparing for the SAT. They might want to say contumelious. When I was young, adults were very careful with what they said about children, and I appreciated that. That helped. I mean, it made education not necessarily easy for an average person like me, but much more accessible because they had to describe things and talk to you in ways without just resorting to base vulgarity. So, okay, we move ahead, starts creeping language, more and more and more and more. Now, I'm no prude. I was in the military, sat in the cockpit for many thousands of hours. You know, spice and season the language as you wish, but it's gotten really pretty coarse. I mean, in all aspects. Now, this is said because people are being authentic. Authentic. So instead of actually coming up with a way to describe something that might be imaginative or add some depth and breadth to the topic, no, just string together vituperative language and call it being authentic. Yeah. Now, one of the advantages of being an average person, never being close to the people that were in the top of any class I was in, was I could look up to them. I always admired people who could explain things really well. And I became an Anglophile at a very young age. So I've had the morphine drip of the BBC and all my life. I just, you know, if you go to England, it might be a taxi driver, it might be the Prime Minister. There's just a level of way that they often used to talk. Not quite sure anymore, but I always appreciated that. So, okay, what bothers me? Why did I interrupt my drum lesson here today to talk about this? Scurrilous language. Scrofulous language, remember? Scabrous language? Oppobrious language, yeah? Okay. The other day I went up to get a dozen donuts. Now, first of all, some of you are going to fault me already for not having gotten 2 dozen donuts, but I got to say, I'm in my mid-60s now, and I probably could do 2 dozen Krispy Kreme donuts, but try to just stagger it out, dozen at a time. While I was sitting there, I heard some young people talking. Now, you know, my business about starting this off, talking about how older people always talked about, or careful how they talked around young people. Of course, as young people, we were always careful how we talked around older people, and we just were careful, very, very careful. Now, what you were doing on Friday night, out drinking beer with your friends, that's up to you, but still we were always careful. Now all those walls have unfortunately fallen down. So as I was sitting in the donut shop, there were some kids, they're high school kids. Just brace yourself for this language, okay? Just brace yourself. If there's children in the room, you might want to ask them to leave. They were talking about getting extra hours at work, what they were going to be doing for summer jobs, picking up extra shifts. I haven't heard one young person say they enjoyed their work. Wow. You know, if you've watched my previous videos, you'll know that I've sort of dedicated my life to trying to be a good example in the indolence movement. to showing the advantages of sloth, to just being a layabout and what that can offer one in life. I've really been a strong proponent of that. And I feel like somehow I've failed here. You know, you try to set the example for young people, and here they're off talking about work and extra shifts and summer jobs, things like that. I just don't know. I just don't know. So maybe 2026 will, you know, offer something better, but I don't know if I would have suspected this. It's said that if you live long enough, that you now live in a world into which you were not born. It's a very good thing. So in other words, the world has changed so much that you no longer live in the world into which you were born. And that's true. Just things with language have changed, unfortunately. Now you have young people openly talking in front of adults about such things as work, extra shifts, and summer jobs. All right. Well, as I said, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the best in 2026. And if you haven't listened to Oughta Love Again by Van Halen, I'd really give it a try. It's got a seriously good beat. And I might even put a link in the description here about, I think this guy's from Australia, this young drummer, does this. Just a masterful piece of work. So, all right. And let's hope for all the better in 2026. Thank you.